Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and I'm the instructor for ANI 258. And we are going to be taking you through how to get started and setting up a scene in the Unreal Editor 4.27.2 and taking you through the user interface of that editor. And we'll go ahead and get started. So let's click on the launcher, and I'm assuming that you've already got the Unreal 4.27.2 installed. If you don't, please install that one. When you click on this, this may not open up like this, so you may need to log in. And what we'll do is I'm going to launch this. That's all you have to click. You can click on this. You can see the engines that I have on here. You can see I started with 4.19 and all the way up to 4.27.2. Now I did use the early access, and I've been learning 5.0.2. That's the latest version of Unreal. We don't want to use that because that's totally changed, and I have to revamp all my videos, which I'm going to do eventually over the summer break. But right now we're going to use Unreal Engine 4.27.2. Okay, if you don't see that, don't have that loaded, and you have an earlier version, you can go to Library, and you can click on engine version, click on the plus sign, and then use the arrow to drag and find the 4.27.2 and install that. Okay, and then you can pause this video and move on. Right now we're going to go ahead and launch this one. Okay, so it's initializing. This doesn't usually take very long. So now we got to kind of take. You may not see anything in here. You haven't done anything yet. These are just earlier scenes that I've created. So I'm going to click on games. Okay, we have film and television and architecture and automotive, but we're just going to focus on games right now. Okay, game level design. Click on next. We're going to click on first person shooter. We're going to click on next. We're going to leave all this stuff disabled. This one's disabled. Now let's talk about this. We want maximum quality. Ray traced. If you do enable that, that's usually for architectural. So ray tracing has everything to do with it's used for shadows, ambient occlusion, reflections, translucency, and global illumination. Makes your scene look photorealistic. So if you want to enable it, it will take a lot longer, maybe 10 minutes compared to maybe 30 seconds to open up with it disabled. I'm going to keep it disabled for time-wise. If you want to enable it, just remember that it will slow your system down. You have to have a pretty robust computer to enable it. So we'll keep it disabled right now. Keep it as a default. This is all default as well. Okay. We want to set with the starter content. Now this does use a little more memory, hard drive space. We want to have that though. You'll be kind of lost without it. Starter content means that you get materials that are free. You don't have to look for them. They're all part of it. And I'll take you through that content real quick after we get started here. So the next thing you need to do is kind of tell the system where you want your project to be in. So it can be in your C drive. It can reside on your C drive. It can reside on your desktop. You can find another. You can do it on your hard drive if you want to. I would recommend that you do it on your system drive. So if you can click on this and click on your system drive, I've got mine on my D drive. So that's what I selected. I got a C drive and a D drive. So what I would suggest that you do is just name it something that makes sense, like what I have here, J Byers, your first initial last name underscore mod underscore 01. So that's going to be your main folder that it's going to create. And then you can create your project. What's your project name going to be? And I would suggest something pretty simple, something like J, your first initial and your last initial underscore, and then the module you're working on, and then underscore 01 or something simple like that, and then underscore A, and I've already created a file that exists already. Okay, so I'm gonna just click on, let's just say this is module 1. then we'll just call it S. All right, so that's kind of what I would suggest. Name it something that makes sense to you, and then you want to create project. Okay, now so it's building, and you can see ray tracing. This is going to be really instantaneous. With that was pretty short. That was like maybe not even 5 or 6 seconds, and the ray tracing enabled took about 10 minutes to 15, almost 20 minutes to get started. So okay. So you see a lot of cool stuff here. At first, it's pretty overwhelming. All right. So what I'm going to do is we've got this little cap up here, and it shows available tutorials. So I'm going to click on that. All right. So welcome to the Unreal Editor. Okay. You got the basics. You got blueprints. You got editors. You got code. Whatever you're into. But what we're going to do is we're just going to go in here and blueprint first person. So I'm going to go in here and take you through this. Okay. All right. So this basically, the reason why I'm using this is because I want you to use this yourself if you get stuck or you don't want to watch this tutorial again and you want to do it, go on your own. So basically this is how you can find your key elements. So we're going to take you through that. So all right, so the tools in the editor are made up of multiple panels, okay? So basically, the way we have here is we have our Windows panel, and we're going to go into the basic, what is the view panel, okay? So basically, this is your view panel, and if you hold the Alt key, you can rotate around with your right mouse button. So the basic, the way it moves is like being in Maya, which is really cool. They've changed all that. And so rotate is your Alt key down, and rotating and holding down your right key. And you can use your middle mouse button to zoom in and zoom out. You can click on an object and hit the F key if you want to. All right. So it works really very similar to Maya. So if you use Maya, you'll feel pretty comfortable in here. Okay. All right. All right, so this is the 3D viewport. Okay. All right, so you can navigate. You can use your WASD keys if you want to fly around. So right mouse button. Okay, and all right, so let's go into next buttons. Okay, these are the viewport buttons. So if you go into your perspective, you can see that's what we're seeing. But if you want to change that to top view, okay, you can zoom out, and you can. I'm just using my my middle mouse button to zoom out if I want to. And I'm using my left mouse button, holding it down to move it around. I can zoom out, zoom in with my middle wheel. Okay. My left mouse button to move around, zoom out. Okay, so I'm going to go to my bottom view. Okay. And if you click on something and I want to hit the F key, I can focus on that. That's kind of nice. Okay. So you can look at the left side. Again, I have that focus. I can focus on that one object. I can zoom out again if I want to click on another object in my scene. Wireframe is great. That way you can just frame stuff easily. Okay. All right. So you can go to right, front, and back. I won't go through all those. All right. So then we'll go back to perspective. All right. So the next thing, I do want to show you some other things here before we go into the modes panel. We've got perspective. We have light or lit. What does that mean? That means the whole scene is being lit, okay, as default. You can go unlit, which doesn't make any sense to me, but a lot of people will use that if they want to show their textures off. Wireframe, which can get very confusing if you have a lot of objects in your scene. Anyway, detailed lighting. lighting only, and you guys can go through all the rest of these. You can see player collision, visibility collision, okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's click on lit. Let's to the next one. So the modes panel contains a selection of various tool modes for the editor. Okay, so let's go into the mode section here. So we have landscape mode, which is also Shift +2. We have foliage, which is Shift +3. Brush editing, which is Shift +4, and mesh paint, which is Shift +5. Okay, we're not going to go through this right now. We're in the selection modes. Okay, but you can go. That's where your modes are. Okay. The next is your content browser. Okay, this is where basically the primary area for creating, importing, organizing, and viewing and modifying content assets within Unreal Editor. Okay, so you can manage your folders, you can create folders, you can rename folders. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I go into my content, let's say, or I can just go back and I want to create my own folder. So I'm going to go in here. And I'm going to say this is J Byers. That's my folder. Okay, just hit enter. Okay, there it is. There's my folder, and if I open that, I can put all my content in there. Okay, but let's say if since I'm in this, I want to create my own folder called materials. Let's say I want to add all my materials here, so I'm going to go and call this materials. So that's the way to create folders and organize your stuff. So I can bring all my materials in there if I want to. Okay. Okay, so I can add and import. So if I go back to content, you can see that, and this is kind of in the way. Let's see if I can move that. I can't really move that. But it's in there, behind that somewhere. Okay. All right, so there's my materials. So you can see that's where all my materials are. All right. So I can double click on that, and I can import a material into this folder if I want to. Okay, so that's how that all works. All right, let's go to content. And this is a starter content that I was talking about that it's really nice to have. So I can double click on that. And you can show materials. Now, textures, you cannot just drag and drop textures in your scene. They need to be materials. So this is what comes with Unreal 4, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to go ahead and click on geometry and click on highlight the box, and I'm going to drag and drop that into my scene. All right, so I can click on it and move it around with the manipulator. Okay. I can hold down the space bar and go through the translation modes. Okay. All right, so that's simple stuff. Let's go ahead and raise it up, and I can hit the home key, or excuse me, the home or the N key. They keep changing this, but let's go ahead and do the N key. So hit the N key, and you can see that it just drops it on the surface of this area here on the floor, which is nice. Okay, so just to show you real quick how this all works, I can go in here and drag and drop this cobblestone onto the box. And you can see that if I hit the F key and rotate around, you can see that I've got that texture on there, which is very cool. So it is a drag and drop if you're using your geometry. Okay, your geometry, your BSPs, what they call binary space partitions. So that's what these are called. These are your building blocks. And you can continue dragging and dropping these. Okay. Now I'm not going to get into scaling these textures, because you will need to kind of fine tune these textures to make them look good. All right, but that's just the idea real quick. We're going through the interface, so I just wanted to show you that real quick. All right, so in the details panel, it contains information utilities. So go ahead and bring that up there so you guys can see that. All right, so you can see that I got this cube, and it did show the texture on there, but you can see these are all the location of the cube, where it's sitting at. If I click on that, I can move it around. Okay, and click on that, I can delete objects. So you can see how I can go in there and you can change this location if I want to maybe -500. and you can see how it moves. Okay, same thing like what you see in Maya under the channel editor. We have the same kind of thing here. We can rotate here, but we can do it in real time by hitting the space bar, by going back and forth between all these. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's the details panel. All right, we got the world outliner. Okay, that's basically kind of the outliner you have in Maya. So it's pretty simple. It takes you through. I'm going to go ahead and delete this box real quick. There we go. Zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole scene. Okay, just kind of center it a little bit. So if I click on one of these pieces, you can see that it highlights. Okay. This pre-built scene, these are all the elements in the pre-built scene. So if you don't want any of these elements, okay, you can take these and delete them. Okay, so I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to hit the delete key. Okay, and I'm going to click on these guys here and delete these. Now be careful what you delete, okay, because if you delete the lighting, you're going to have to recreate that by scratch. Okay, you don't want to do that. Okay, so make sure you do not mess with anything underneath here. Okay, just basically close that off and just don't touch. Okay, all right. So just want to let you guys know about that. That's a world outliner, which is really cool. We got the column selector drop-down menu, and you can move these things anywhere you want to. These are breakaway menus. You can take those, mess around with those. This is the toolbar, provides quick access to saving your content, your current, and other operations. Okay, for like building your scene, you can go in here and build lighting. And all that, and we'll take you through that all later, but this is just basically the UI. The menu bar's up here. We can go to File, and you got your menu bar here. You got your Edit, and all your main menus, attributes here. Window, Edit. And Editor Preferences is something you probably want to keep in mind. That's where you can kind of edit all the appearance, experimental. If there's something that's kind of that you want to do that's not showing, you probably can find it in here. Okay, be careful not to mess things up in here. It's fun to experiment, but remember that you may want to, if you do experimenting, do not save your scene because it'll save all of this with it. Okay, so if you mess this up, it's going to be very hard and difficult for me to know what you did to get it back to where it was. Okay, all right, so we've got our other controls here. We've got our select and translate objects. So those are those buttons here. Okay, so again, if I click on a box and I add it to this, I've got my selection tools here. Okay, so if you don't want to hit the space bar, then you can, to go through them, you can go in here and just click on it if you want to. Okay, all right, so you got your gizmo that goes from object space to world space. So that's object space, that's world space. So if you get kind of a wonky translator, okay, your axis is wonky, kind of sideways or something, either go into world or object. That will fix that. Okay, right now we're in world. Okay, so snapping options. You've got snapping options here. You got surface snapping. Okay, that's available. We also have grid snapping here. And with grid snapping on, then it will snap to the grid. Okay, so I've got it set to 10, but if I set it to 500, that will snap. You can see how it snaps every 500 units. Okay, so one will give you really fine snapping. Okay, and as you move up, it'll be coarser snapping. So you'll just have to set it the way is comfortable for you as you work. Okay, right? To have enhanced tools, you can access those by holding down the Control plus Alt while moving the mouse cursor over most interface elements. Okay, so make sure you remember that. Again, this is here for you guys to explore too as well. Okay. All right, so this is the UI. That's kind of finishes it up. I mean, it's kind of in a nutshell. So you can go back and click Home, and you can go in here and learn more about the editors or anything else you want to learn about. That's where your tutorials are, which is really nice. Okay. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.